Hello and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Panasonic 100 to 300 millimeter. We're going to be taking a look at the build quality, the image quality, and finally the autofocus. So stay tuned, let's get right into the video. So first of all comes build quality. I actually find this lens is very nicely put together, especially considering the price. It is primarily made out of plastic, so keep that in mind, but it is still very solid. So again, primarily made out of plastic. I've actually dropped this lens a couple of times and it's held up very nicely. So definitely a big thumbs up. One thing I would, however, change is the zoom ring is made out of a kind of rubbery material. I know some people like it. It offers very nice grip, but at the same time, it does get dirty very quickly. So keep that in mind. Usually I just use a towel and some rubbing alcohol to clean it off. I would normally much rather prefer a texture such as the focus ring. It's more of a plasticky feel, but at the same time, it doesn't get dirty nearly as fast. But yeah, could be a plus point, could be a minus point, depending on your needs. But then other than that, again, very nicely constructed. Definitely 10 out of 10 when taking the price into consideration. Now, second of all comes image quality. Now, I'm just going to say if you are zoomed in fully to 300 millimeters at f5.6, it is going to exhibit quite a bit of vignetting and it is not going to be as sharp as possible, especially on the edges. In the middle, it's actually okay, but there's also some chromatic aberrations and the optics overall are just not very nice. So I would definitely stop down to f8, then it renders a beautiful image. Of course, the bokeh isn't going to be as nice at f5.6, but I'd much rather sacrifice a little bit of bokeh just to get some beautiful image quality, sharpness across the frame, and very minimal vignetting. So actually surprisingly good image quality if you stop down to f8. Then if you are at 100 millimeters, actually I find wide open at f4, which is the maximum aperture. At 100 millimeters, it actually is very nice image quality. I probably wouldn't stop down, although you might be able to see some improvement once stopping down to a 5.6. So again, if you don't mind stopping down to f8, very nice image quality. Here are some examples of this lens zoomed in completely to 300 millimeters, both at f5.6 and f8, and then some examples of it zoomed in to 100 millimeters at f4 and at 5.6. Now, lastly and finally comes autofocus. Now, I'm just going to say from the beginning, I'm not a photographer. I do take pictures, and I find this lens does a okay job. But if you're doing primarily birds in flight and you want to take it to a professional level, I would probably not recommend this lens. However, if you're more starting out or your budget is rather limited, this is definitely a great option, even for those of you who want to take some birds in flight pictures. Here are some birds in flight pictures I took, and again, I'm not a photographer, but it does its job okay. When it comes to video, I would probably recommend keeping this at manual focus. What I often do is I'll have it on autofocus, find the focus, and then put it on manual focus. So the reason why I do this is because if you leave it on autofocus, as you can see in this example here, there is quite a bit of hunting and pulsing in the background. So I would definitely recommend keeping it on manual focus, just so that you can have a clean image that isn't jumping back and forth the whole time. So I would definitely not recommend this lens for its autofocus. So again, if you're starting out doing photography, it's a great lens. If you're doing video and you don't mind going on manual focus a lot of the times, amazing lens. But again, I would not recommend this lens purely because of its autofocus. So in conclusion, I can definitely recommend this lens. Again, very nice build quality, very nice image quality, and especially if you're ready to stop down to f8. And the autofocus is all right, even though if you want to get something better, I would definitely recommend going to something like the Leica 100 to 400 millimeter. So yeah, very nice lens, definitely recommended, especially taking into consideration the price. So if you like these types of videos, definitely consider subscribing and hitting the thumbs up button. Until next time, I'm definitely going to consider making more reviews just like this one.